trying to evaluate whether something occurred, you have to look at different pieces of the narrative. The location, where it happened, the witnesses, who were they, what did they say, the details. Details are very important in time. So we start off with the location. And according to their complaint, after approximately 20 minutes, she arrived at a white house with a U-shaped driveway and a gate. There is no such location in New York, 20 minutes from Radio City. It does not exist. There is no such location. We don't know whether they created a location in order to try to get jurisdiction in New York so they could bring this case in New York, or whether they just didn't do their homework. But any New Yorker knows there is no such location. Beyond that, this was supposed to have taken place at Mr. Combs' after party, according to them. When you look at the homes associated with Mr. Combs during that period of time, and even not during that period of time, none of them matches. He had a townhouse, he had a house in the Hamptons hours away, and he had homes in New Jersey, but not at that time. None of the homes work, the location doesn't work, because this never happened. And again, when you really bear down on the location and his whereabouts, you quickly realize, because if there's photographic evidence and witnesses are coming forward, that Mr. Carter was in a commercial establishment after the VMAs. He wasn't at a house. Unfortunately for them, they needed to create this house in order to create the narrative. But he wasn't at a White House that did not exist. And this is a photograph of him at a location after the VMAs. So as we can continue through this, that Jane Doe does not say that the assault happened at a commercial establishment. She can't. That wouldn't make any sense. Yet they stand by it. They double down, they triple down. White House, the White House doesn't exist. And then we get to the witnesses. And I think at the outset, everybody has to remember that in 24 years, not a single witness has ever come forward saying this happened. Quarter of a century. Think about that. She says she's at the party alone, this 13-year-old girl, and she finds herself in the room with the three most famous people at the party. Just think about how unnatural, how little common sense that makes. And according to her, one of the witnesses is a female celebrity who's just standing there watching the repetitive rape of a child. That celebrity does nothing, says nothing, reports nothing. And in fact, they won't even identify her. According to them, there's an adult female in the room watching the rape of a child. They refuse to identify her. So then we continue, and you look and there's celebrities that she says she's mingling with before. Afterwards, she says she runs out of the house naked. None of them notice that. None of them pay any notice. For 24 years, none of them has said anything. And so she's just asked in this interview, she's asked, well, I mean, celebrities are recognizable people. Surely you can tell us one celebrity that was there. Just give us one name so that we know this happened. And she says, okay, Benji Madden was there. And she wants to conjure up religion and say, I'm religious, I remember his tattoo. She looks and remembers so vividly the tattoo and the conversation with Mr. Madden. Well, Mr. Madden wasn't there. He already said he wasn't there. His tour schedule says he wasn't there. And he wasn't there because this never happened. None of this ever happened. And you keep going, and you ask yourself, well, who is this complaining witness? She does not come forward with her real name. She proceeds under Jane Doe. There's no report to the police. According to her, she never tells anybody for 24 years. Not one person, not alone in the car for 5 hours at home, on her way home. Not one person, not a diary, not a family member, not a friend. Most people, when this happens, there's a need to tell somebody. We call these prompt outcry witnesses. In most complaints like this, people tell somebody. She says nobody for 24, 25 years. And then we get to the details. And I want to make sure this is clear. When people make up an account, whether intentionally or their mind is playing tricks on them, they can always get that core part of the story right. They can just keep repeating it over and over and over again. This is what happened, that core part. But they're always going to mess up the details. When something isn't real, when something doesn't happen, you're going to get the details wrong because you weren't really there. And so she starts with her story about her friend that dropped her off. Okay? This drive of over 5 hours, the friend would have had to have gone 10 plus hours to drop her off because she's got to get there. If this is real, she's got to get there. But guess what? This friend of hers, she doesn't get out of the car. right? Think about that. She's just leaving a 13-year-old girl alone in Midtown. She doesn't even want to get out of the car. She came all that way. There can't be a witness there. She can't have a witness there because this never happened. So as you keep going, you ask yourself, but how did she end up in the car in the first place? And so she creates this story. She says, I snuck out the window, right? But now we know she came from Rochester. So she would have been sneaking out of the window at 3 in the afternoon in the middle of broad daylight. Never heard of such a thing, defies common sense, doesn't make any sense because this never happened. And so she tells this story because she's got to create a way that she gets out of the house and ends up in New York City. And as we keep going here, the friend that implausibly leaves her there, there's then some pressure on that part of the story because it doesn't make any sense. And so the lawyer is asked, well, just produce the friend. And so he has to find somebody that can make this work. And of course, as soon as he's pressed, they find somebody who they say is no longer alive. They can't corroborate it and there's nobody to talk to. Okay, and if we could keep going. Next slide. So she then gets there, right? And she has this vivid tale of watching it on a Jumbotron. It's in her complaint. Clear as day. There was no Jumbotron that year. Okay? I don't know whether they were Googling images and found the wrong year. I don't know whether she's just making it up out of whole cloth. There is no Jumbotron. In fact, they didn't even get a permit, according to the police and the city, for the Jumbotron that year. So that didn't happen. None of the details are right because this never happened. If we can keep going. And then she says, I'm knocking on the doors and the windows of limousines and VIPs. Of course, that doesn't work either. If you look at the video, photographs, that whole area was blocked off. We've spoken to numerous people there that were in security. No one could have gotten anywhere near those cars because this never happened. She gets that fact wrong. And you know, the whole story about, of all people, she knocks on Puff's window. 13-year-old girl in Midtown by herself. Just think about that. Think about how illogical that is. Keep going. Again, this is Eminem performing in the streets. No Jumbotron. All the cars barricaded. Her facts don't check out because this never happened. We can keep going. So what ends up happening then, and this is important, is her original account in the original complaint says that at 9:30 or 10, she's told to wait there to get a ride to the after party. Okay? That also doesn't work because there's photographs now of Mr. Combs, Mr. Carter at commercial establishments in New York after the VMAs. So this narrative of at 10 o'clock she ends up at this party can't work. They got caught. So they change it in the amended complaint that there's this multiple drop-off and pickup that lands them at this White House that doesn't exist. So as we continue, this is again her account of trying to change the story into this multiple drop-off period to get them at the house to deal with the fact that there's photographic evidence that that's not where the after party was in the first place. And so as this account continues, you have to look at the timeline. You have to look at the timeline. So there's an old expression that time doesn't lie. Everything else that I'm talking about, these glaring inconsistencies, these are not minor inconsistencies. These are not minor problems with this story. This is utter falsehoods. Time never lies. And so if you look at the time, no matter what, this couldn't have happened. It's not even possible that this happened. And this is so important. So again, now that we know that it's a 5-hour drive in each direction, how she gets to the VMAs, okay, we're going to talk in some detail about this White House and whether or not they could have gotten there. And then again, Doe returns home to Rochester, okay? And this is very important. Because she returns home, she has to leave the New York area by 1:30 in the morning at the latest, okay? If you look at any of these White Houses and you look at the closest gas stations that could be to any of these White Houses, you have to leave this White House party by 12:45 in order to get to the gas station at 1:30 to call your father to pick you up to get home to Rochester at 6:30. So remember, she only has till 12:45 for everything that she says to have happened. The VMAs end at after 11. So you're talking about a window of a little more than an hour that this could possibly have happened even by their own account. And she says, during that little bit more than an hour, not only does she get to the house, not only is she inside mingling with celebrities, she has a drink, She's then sexually assaulted in front of an adult female multiple times. She gets out of that. She fights through it. She leaves the house naked. She gets all the way to the gas station. She had 37 minutes to possibly do this. Okay, even under their account. Okay, and of course, the biggest problem, perhaps of all, is there's photographs putting Mr. Combs and Mr. Carter at different places, not in a White House during that 37 minutes. So when I tell you that it's not just that this story is a lie and that it's not true, it's provably, demonstrably false. This never happened. So we talked about this 37 minutes. The earliest they could have gotten to the house is 12:11. And the reason for that is if the VMAs end and the drive is 20 minutes, the driver has to go there, drop them off, come back, pick her up, bring her back. She can't get there. And again, this is lickety-split. This is as fast as is possible, okay? This is no traffic leaving Radio City in Midtown during an awards ceremony. 12:11. She has to leave that white residence by 12:48 in order for her father to pick her up at the gas station. 37 minutes, that's the entire window of opportunity here. So here again is the timeline, shows the 11:11 VMAs end, the drop off, the pickup, and the drop off. Next slide. And again, here we are, you see the 37 minutes. This is the 42 minutes it takes to walk. This is the closest gas station. And this is, remember this is a 13-year-old girl walking who has issues, who is maybe drugged according to her, who's just been viciously raped multiple times, who was holding her own clothing trying to get to a gas station that she had never been before. Okay? No map, no cell phone, no nothing. Straight line, it's 42 minutes. Okay? The story doesn't work, it doesn't check out. Okay? This never happened. Next slide. These are all the things that they claim happened in that 37 minutes. Okay? And again, 37 is giving them every benefit of the doubt as how long this window could be. Every benefit of the doubt. But here's an even bigger problem. There are photographs of Mr. Carter and Mr. Combs at commercial establishments during the 37 minutes. They're not there. Even if you try to come up with the fastest possible timeline, I'm talking about no traffic, nobody getting in your way at the door, right to the bar kind of timeline, it still doesn't work. Because they had to leave Radio City, they had to go to the commercial establishments. Mr. Combs is photographed at 2 different commercial establishments with Jennifer Lopez, 2 establishments. They had to go to both of those establishments and get back to the White House. Get back to the White House before she has to leave at 12:30. None of this can work. And in fact, and I think this is very important, you will notice in the photographs that Miss Lopez changes clothing between the 2 events that they go to in New York City. You can see in one photograph she's wearing one outfit and another. So she had to be able to, in this 40-minute window, get to multiple events. They're seen drinking, socializing. She has to change outfits, change her hair, all within 40 minutes to get to that White House in time. And you're saying to yourself, so that's not possible. You're right, it's not possible. It's because this never happened. And then we get to the end. She kept running until she reached a gas station. A female clerk noticed her, allowed her to use the phone. Plaintiff called her father, admitted that she had lied about her whereabouts. And this is a very small thing, very small. But remember, when you leave house and you're 13, you have to have a story. You either have to sneak out and not have a lie, or you tell your parents a lie. Sort of 2 options, right? Earlier, she says, well, I didn't tell my parents a lie, I just snuck out the window, right? Here, she says, well, I lied. See, do you know what that means? That means she's lying even within her own story. They can't both be true. And I said earlier that no witnesses have come forward in basically a quarter of a century, except for one. Now there's one, her own father, the person who knows her best. And he came forward too, and he said, you know what? This never happened. This never happened. And his attention was drawn to it. I feel like I would remember that. And they said, but you've got a lot going on. Maybe you forgot this. You've got a lot going on. They told him, listen, you've got a lot going on. Try to, try to see if they pressed him, if he stuck to his story. He said, yeah, I have a lot going on, but that's something that would definitely stick in my mind. Of course it would stick in your mind. You drove 10 hours to pick up your 13-year-old daughter in New York City. It's not something you would forget. It's not something that he did forget because this never happened. And of course, just like the friend that couldn't be there at the beginning, you can't have a witness to something that never happened. When asked, well, what did you say to your father in the car? What did you talk about? Nothing. She says not a word was spoken. There can't be a conversation because this never happened. So you got to ask yourself what's going on here, right? And you all saw that videotape of her being interviewed in the shadowy room. She's holding a teddy bear. She's talking about her issues, her head trauma. She's been through a lot in her life, you can tell. And so who took advantage of this? Why are we here? Why is this story getting created? And I'll tell you who took advantage of this. This lawyer took advantage of this. That's what's going on here. And you can see here, now that this is starting to unravel and the truth is coming out, he's starting to walk away from it. He's saying, oh, sorry, this case was referred to our firm by another firm, so I didn't really check it out, is basically what he's saying, right? He brings an accusation like this, attacks a man with the integrity of Mr. Carter, and all he has to say for himself now is, well, I didn't really check on this. I got a referral, trying to make a little bit of money, so we just went live with it. Next. Here is again the timeline that he went live with. In the face of this irrefutable, time doesn't lie evidence, he went live with it. And again, it doesn't work. This 37 minutes, it does not work. It does not work because there's photographs. There's photographs. You can find them on the internet of them. They're changing clothes. She's changed clothes. Do you know how long that takes for her to go to 2 events, change clothes, get inside, have drinks, they're socializing, they're not popping into these events. To then get back out into the suburbs somewhere in a house that doesn't exist? It's not possible. Actually not possible. He is for sure innocent of this accusation. Next slide. But you know, this lawyer, he doesn't care about things like this. The only other person he's brought a complaint against for just mere association, merely being at a Sean Combs party, he's already been wrong about that one too. He had to change that one. If you look at the next slide, he got the year wrong. He said there was a party in the Hamptons. Mr. Combs was in Saint-Tropez at the time. Didn't check out. 2 claims, neither are checking out. If we could keep going. And we have this, individuals calling my office, telling me story after story, and I'm not going to get sidetracked. People think I'm going to start saying, explaining he's a grifter and all these things about him. I'm not here to talk about him more than I need to. But there's people calling the office saying, yeah, they were being pressured to say stuff, to say that they were with Mr. Combs. These are affidavits. They're filed in court. This is what you're dealing with here. Next slide. And so this is who took advantage of the woman in the shadowy video. He gives a press conference, 1-800 number, and he claims 2 days after posting that press conference, 2 days, that he has 120 fully vetted plaintiffs. 120. Anybody that does this for real, anyone that knows what they're doing, knows to corroborate, to interrogate, and to be sure about even one person takes weeks. One person. You've got to find out if their story makes sense. Did they really get dropped off? Does any of it check out? Is there corroboration? Are there any witnesses? It takes weeks for one. He had 120 in 2 days. When he files these cases, he doesn't even enter his notice of appearance. He just has some other lawyer file them, and he holds these press conferences. He says, listen, anybody out there, just call the 1-800 number. If you can put yourself anywhere near a Sean Combs party, at any point, we can go after the other celebrities there. We can make money together. Just call the 1-800 number. That's all you need to do. And then we'll send a letter to the celebrity. They're not going to want to have this in the public light. And they're going to be shaken down and they'll send us money. So he just called the number. And Mr. Carter said no. He said, that's not going to happen anymore. I'm going to put my foot down. And that's what he did. And I would urge any other celebrity that's being shaken down right now to do the same thing and to stand with truth. None of this ever happened. And what this 1-800 lawyer is doing He's taking the justice away from this. He's destroying this opportunity and the voices of real victims, and it's got to end. I think the first thing today was to make sure that everybody understands this is not an account of inconsistencies. I wanted everybody to understand that this never happened. This is completely false, and then we'll move forward from there. Yes.
What is Mr. Carter's account of that night? Does he say he was at multiple locations, just that nightclub, Lotus nightclub that he was photographed at?
Yeah, so I'm not going to get into sort of privileged communications and talk too much about that, but I will say that he was not at any house or any location. They were in New York City. They were at commercial establishments with lots of people around, and this is obviously completely false.
How's Mr. Carter feeling?
He's upset. He's upset that somebody would be allowed to do this. They would make a mockery of the system like this. He's upset that this distracts and dissuades real victims from coming forward. He's upset that his kids and his family have to deal with this. He's upset, and he should be upset.
Is your firm investigating Busby, talking to people around him as he's alleged in some of his legal suit, in his suit against Tony Manuel?
Yeah, that suit went nowhere, as you saw. And what happens when people bring frivolous cases and run rackets like this is, of course, we're asking questions. I've got people contacting my office telling me chapter and verse about him. So we don't shut off the phone lines. I'm listening because I'm trying to figure out how this is allowed to proceed like this. Yes?
He posted a photo on his Instagram of 3 men at a door of his client, suggesting that investigators came and said that they would pay $1,000 for plaintiffs to file a suit against him. I mean, do you have any connection to those men that he photographed? Do those men have any connection to Quinn Emanuel?
Zero. Okay, I don't know whether it's completely false or not, but zero connection to those people. Have no idea what that is. Don't know whether he made it up out of whole cloth. Don't know if he's trying to distract from what he's under now. But no, there's no truth to that. Anything else?
You shot straight, but you shot late. Hi, Lim. This is the Rundown Podcast.
I'm gonna give you the rundown.
We expect Mr. Carter to be fully cleared of all of this in the coming days. Almost nothing that she says has checked out because this never happened.
She says that she might have some facts wrong, but that she says the incident happened. What do you say to that?
You know, anybody, when they make up a claim, they can just keep repeating it and getting it right. But you never get the details right. And what happened during her interview with you is that the story began to unravel.
This woman is standing by her story. It happened over 20 years ago. Maybe her memory is hazy. Maybe her father doesn't remember that night.
No, she's doubled down on certain of these details. She says, I'm positive. She points out the tattoo. She talks about the tattoo in vivid detail. Turns out that's completely false. And the father is supposed to be picking her up. 10-hour drive, round trip to pick her up in the middle of the night. Has no memory of that. No one has come forward about this in nearly a quarter of a century, and that's because this never happened.
Spyro said he's not only seeking justice for Jay-Z, he says that he also wants to expose the accuser's attorney, Tony Busby.
He takes away the voices from real victims and he causes real harm. If this lawyer has any sense, he's going to dismiss this claim. I don't know whether he has any sense.
Busby, who has filed more than 20 lawsuits against Combs, told NBC News that he is continuing to vet the accuser's claims and that she has agreed to undergo a polygraph this week. A representative for Combs called the suit a shameless money grab.
Since your attorneys refiled the lawsuit against Combs naming Jay-Z, he has come out with a very long statement saying that this is completely not true and that this is all about trying to get money from him. What do you say about that?
I haven't asked for a dime from him. It's not everything is motivated by money, and I'm sorry that he feels that it is.
This woman also told us on camera last week that this isn't about money.
Well, let's be serious. A lawyer like this is not sending out these letters not to make money. He wants money and fame. He doesn't care about truth and justice. And that's what's going on here.
Jay-Z's team created a timeline. Obviously, even though this took place
allegedly 24 years ago, right? They are saying that there is just no way that he could have been at the VMAs. He's on camera there until the end of the VMAs, which ended right after 11, and that there are photographs of him at the Lotus Club in Manhattan, and they say he was there till 3 a.m. and then he went to the music studio. So again, they are adamant that
he was not at that party.
That he was not at any sort of after party.
Say my hey man, hey man, it's OG Jucario. Now I'm back at you with another one. And I had to come slide on the YouTube block because Jay-Z's attorney, that's right, Alex Shapiro, has just did a press conference and he's giving a detailed timeline, as you heard. And yeah, man, he laying it all out on the line. Look, he's saying at 3 p.m. that day of September the 7th, 2000, right? She had to sneak out the window because she said she didn't tell her parents, right? She didn't say nothing. Just snuck out of that window right after school, I'm assuming. And we never got into that. We never heard if she was homeschooled. Or, you know, she went to public school. She had autism is what they said. So what was going on with that? And is that the correct time she got home from school, right at 3 o'clock, for this timeline to unfold this way? Well, who knows? But this is what Shapiro laid out, right? And Jay-Z's attorney is saying, look, none of this stuff could have happened, you know, the way she's telling it. Because according to his timeline, it doesn't fit. And if it doesn't fit, like OJ, right, must have quit. Wowzers. Yeah. And after this Jane Doe snuck out of that house in Rochester, right, she got a friend, an unnamed friend that's now deceased, conveniently, to drive her 5 hours away to Manhattan to where the VMAs were taking place, right? So she leaves Rochester with this friend, drives 5 hours away. The VMAs begins at 8 p.m. that night of September the 7th, 2000, right? And it ends at 11 p.m. according to Shapiro timeline. And a couple of things that were said was, you know, hey, guess what? The whole part where she said she walked up and she was knocking on windows and doors of limo drivers right there in front of the VMAs, the venue, the Radio City Hall where this took place. Shapiro is saying, look, he talked to people, he vetted this, did the research, and they're saying that no limos was parked in front of this whole ordeal. And how did she talk to people that drove limos that wasn't parked there at all? It was blocked off, you guys, because Eminem had his performance right there in front. And you've seen all the gates and things of that nature keeping people back from these 100 lookalikes of Eminem while he was doing his outside performance leading into Radio City Hall. And you don't see any limos out there, is what Shapiro is saying. How could she have talked to somebody, you know, who drove a limo for Diddy? You know, I mean, that's kind of a far-fetched, you know, statement to say. Out of all the limos that could have been out there for anybody, any of the stars, right? She's claiming that she talked to a limo driver who drove for Diddy. Wow. Okay, so nevertheless, there was a lot of inconsistencies is what Shapiro was saying. And in this timeline, as we heard, right, 11 p.m. is when the VMAs ended. And this so-called limo driver, right, told her to wait right there. He was going to drop off an entourage of puffies, right, at this party. He was coming back to get her. But check this out. Before we get that far, she stated that she watched this whole ordeal because she couldn't get inside of the VMAs on the Jumbotron, right? But guess what? Shapiro did the research on that too, and Jay-Z's attorney says, look, that year MTV didn't even have the Jumbotron running. They didn't even rent it out that year to, you know, have showing the people that were outside what was going on inside. It's impossible. It couldn't have happened. Right? So that was another inconsistency in her story that Shapiro pointed out. And guess what? It's not looking too good so far. There's a bunch of holes being poked in this story, you guys. Wowzers. Yeah. So, you know, she stood there and waited there, right? This friend had already left. And, you know, left this 13-year-old autistic child, right, in front of this Radio City Hall. And according to the timeline, Shapiro is saying that, you know, when this limo driver did come back from allegedly dropping off Combs' entourage, right? Well, that couldn't have been at no after party at a white mansion, right? Because Shapiro is saying that in that vicinity, right, there's no mansions in that area. It would be 40 minutes away. She said it was 20 minutes away, and people are saying, well, maybe she got the, time schedule wrong, and how long it takes to travel from the VMAs to this, mansion that was allegedly in that area, right, of New York. But Shapiro is saying, look, hey, that doesn't still make sense, doesn't line up, because there are no mansions in that area, that would take that short amount of time to get to, okay? And Shapiro told us that Diddy didn't own no residences close to the VMAs, close to Manhattan. Not 20 miles away from the VMAs, not even 40, because this white residence, according to Shapiro, does not exist. But Puff did have some residence, a couple of houses and a condo or whatnot in New York. But that was nowhere near what this claim is saying in the paperwork, okay? It wasn't 20 minutes away from these venues that this lady is claiming, okay? Now, with that being said, okay, Busby and his firm are accused of, placing this alleged incident, right, in New York at a resident of Puffy's, just so they can have a valid claim to file this case, all right? And it's not looking too good with Shapiro poking holes in that whole theory that Diddy even had a white mansion or even rented one or anything close to that nature, right, around that time of the VMAs in 2000. So, and then not to mention that, Diddy and Jay-Z went at no mansion party straight after the VMAs because they were spotted and pictured, right, at different events, at a club here and there. And this is not what she said in her story, okay? She said she went straight to the mansion party where Diddy and Jay-Z were at already in the house. And Shapiro was saying, no. Diddy and Jay-Z were at a club, all right? So this is impossible that they would do this act to her at this club in front of people, right? But hey, nevertheless, this is what she is claiming. It can't be true. And Shapiro also gave us the timeline of J-Lo and Diddy when they were together that night of the VMAs, saying that J-Lo had two different outfits on, right? So it had to be time for her to switch those outfits out, right? At the VMAs, she had on this all white with the white bandana on her hair, right? And then she also had a different wardrobe on at the after party at the nightclub where they were spotted, and they said that, reported by Daily Mail that J-Lo and Diddy had some type of argument, right? A heated argument that night. And she was pictured with different clothes on, and Shapiro, he targeted in on that. So how did she change clothes? Where all that time go when, they had to do all this if they went straight from the VMAs to a mansion party, right? This white residence where this Jane Doe says she was taken to, right? So when Shapiro brought all that up, he's basically saying, look, this is not adding up, right? Because at the end of the day, they didn't go straight to a white residence for this after party. They went to a nightclub where Jay-Z and Diddy and J-Lo and all the other celebrities met up at, okay? So this whole ordeal with this Jane Doe, saying that she went straight to an after party at a white residence, a mansion, right? Couldn't have happened, you guys, because these guys were at a whole different location, okay? And then he went as far as to even say that, Jay-Z even went to the studio afterwards, okay, and never even went to a house at all, okay? So how could she had seen Jay-Z to have did these things to her that night of this after party? Wow. And even Puffy, Shapiro was saying, in so many ways is clearing Puff's name also in this case, because these guys were both pictured somewhere else and not at a house party like she's claiming. And what I gather from that is Shapiro is basically saying, how can P. Diddy and Jay-Z be in two different places at one time at this all-white mansion party, right? And at this nightclub where J-Lo and Diddy and Jay-Z and them were pictured right? In the moment of that party at this nightclub. It's impossible. So, once again, more inconsistencies is what Shapiro showed in the timeline of what the Jane Doe has said. But Shapiro entertained it, and he said, okay, well, let's just say, they did go straight to this so-called alleged after party at this white mansion. Shapiro is saying the earliest that Combs could arrive at that white residence was 11:31, okay? And this is after 11 p.m. after the VMAs ended. Okay, and then at 11:51 p.m., okay, 20 minutes later, that's what, they're saying it took to drive to this residence, okay, this white mansion party. As, Shapiro was saying, that's impossible because there is no residences that close to the VMAs, 20 minutes away, right? So, anyway, let's continue. So the earliest limo returns to Radio City to pick up this Jane Doe, who's 13 years old, right? At 11:51 p.m. Okay, let's just say, this is, her timeline of events. All right, and let's not forget that Shapiro was saying that Diddy went to 2 different after parties. Okay, him and J-Lo, and he stated that Jay-Z only went to one nightclub where Diddy and Jay-Z were spotted at and those pictures were taken, okay? Now, at 12:11 a.m., when the limo and Jane Doe arrived at the white residence, according to her timeline, right? Okay? Now, she is saying that, all this took place within 37 minutes of her having to leave that white residence and running out of that door after this alleged incident took place with her, Jay-Z, and Diddy and this unnamed celebrity B female that witnessed this whole ordeal take place. Now check this out. So at 12:11 she gets to the white residence in a limo. And at 12:48 is the latest that the Doe leaves the white residence, okay? And in that time, that's only 37 minutes for this to occur, which is, active amount of time to do something like that. But check this out. She has to get away from this after party, right, to go to this gas station. And that takes 42 minutes is what Shapiro was saying, according to his timeline. And this is where the Jane Doe calls her father at this gas station. It takes her 42 minutes to get to this gas station from this white residence where she just ran out of that mansion half naked. Nobody said nothing. Nobody noticed nothing at all. Drug-fueled rage, orgy that was going on. Nobody seen nothing going on with this 13-year-old girl, allegedly, right? And at 6:29 a.m. is the latest that the Doe was picked up by the father after she made that 1:30 a.m. call to the father to come pick her up, and he had to drive 5 hours, which put him in Manhattan, New York, to pick her up at 6:29 a.m. that morning, okay? So, and then the dad said he doesn't recall doing this at all. He doesn't recall having to drive 10 hours to pick up his daughter in the year 2000. So, all these inconsistencies is what Alex Shapiro laid out on this timeline table and how things just does not make sense. How this Jane Doe is saying all this unfolded in the amount of time that she said it unfolded within, okay? And a lot of people are saying this is not looking too good for Tony Busby and his firm trying to prove this lady's case that she told nobody about. A quarter of a century, right? And she went without saying nothing at all until now. Now Busby is saying that, hey, look, well, this case was given to me by somebody. Somebody referred this case to me, and they vetted it. They investigated it before they gave it to us, right? These claims are valid. But now Busby is saying, hey, look, now we have to vet more. We have to vet this because, we thought it was all laid out for us. And now it's looking like Busby did not do the research. He was given this case, right? Given the alley-hoop, he thought. But it's not that easy because Alex Shapiro and Jay-Z, they're coming at this thing at all angles. And Shapiro pointed out it's the little things that matter, right? The small things. With her saying that she just snuck out the window and went with this friend to go to Manhattan from Rochester, which is 5 hours away. She didn't tell her parents nothing. She just snuck out the window and left. Now she comes back and she says a different statement when she calls her dad to come pick her up. She says that she lied about her whereabouts. Well, either you snuck out the house and didn't say nothing to your parents, or you lied about your whereabouts. You said you didn't say nothing at all. So how could you lie about your whereabouts if you didn't say nothing? So little things like that is what Shapiro pointed out in his timeline. More inconsistencies started to unfold, you guys. And all this timeline shows is none of this stuff could have happened the way she said it, in the timely manner that she put it in, right? In order for her to have these things happening to her and then getting back home by a certain time of morning, right? After her dad had to travel 5 hours to get her and 5 hours back home. So it just didn't make sense to Shapiro. That's how, he put this timeline together. And he's clearly putting it on the line, saying that, hey, Jay-Z is upset that this man is able to put out these claims, these allegations against him without vetting any type of information before doing so. And not to mention, Shapiro made another good point. And if she was out of it, as she claimed, right, with this drink, something was put in her drink. That's what she said. She felt woozy. How was she able to run almost 42 minutes from this white residence, 42 minutes away to a gas station that she claimed she noticed on the way there, right? You're supposed to be out of it. You're supposed to be woozy. How are you running 42 minutes to a gas station? Just doesn't make sense. And it was very masterful how Alex Shapiro, the attorney for Jay-Z, kept repeating those words, right? That phrase. That's because it never happened, right? And that sticks in your mind, you guys, and the way he lays this whole timeline out, it sure makes me believe it never happened neither. Because it's just impossible how he, presented this, that this could have took place in the timeline that she claims happened, you guys. And with the father saying that this is not something that he would just totally forget, right? Having to drive 10 hours to go pick up his 13-year-old daughter from New York, from Rochester, right? It's a 5-hour trip here and 5-hour trip back there to the house. It's 10 hours. I wouldn't forget that. So, hey, it's not looking good at all for Busby, who took on this case that was referred to him, right? And a lot of people were thinking Busby did his own research, and maybe he did do some research, but just not enough, thinking that the people who gave him the case had already vetted and, did all the research that was needed to go forward with the claim. Now, Shapiro was telling us how he feels like Tony Busby took advantage of this lady in the story, right, to make a little cash, a couple of shekels, right, and also get a little fame off this whole case with Jay-Z and Diddy, the jiggler, right? And it's not looking too good, you guys, because now everything is starting to crumble. That's right, the cookie is starting to crumble, you guys. And these claims are not looking too strong at this point. And Shapiro let us know also that, look, just because, you see these two guys on pictures together, videos together, right? Well, they support each other. Doesn't mean that they're best friends, right? So this is what Shapiro, the angle he came at with Puff and Diddy not really being as cool as people think they are. This is just, two friends that get together and, from time to time, and they have a couple of drinks, party with each other, and they support each other in each one's endeavors. So basically, Shapiro is saying that Jay-Z is not affiliated with Diddy in any type of way, okay? So Tony Busby, now it's your turn. This is chess, right? Not checkers. I'm pretty sure Busby is sitting back, kicking the air. Like, man, this guy is too good, right? He broke down the Jane Doe that Tony Busby has brought to the table with these allegations. And Shapiro is saying, look, this does not, add up, Busby. So what's your move now that Shapiro has put it all on the line? And Shapiro was also pointing out that other lawsuits that Busby filed have already been exposed as shams, right? And, you know, this information that he had in other lawsuits didn't add up as well, and it was proven. And Shapiro just thought that he might point that out in his demonstration, his PowerPoint, okay, this timeline that he put together of Busby's client claiming these allegations against Jay-Z and Diddy, or better yet, Jay-Z. And when asked why is she doing this now, is it all because of money? The Jane Doe stated that it's not just because of the money, you know, this is not why she's coming forward now. This is what she says. She says she wanted to, you know, finally tell her truth and get this out the way, all right, and finally get some justice. But this is a civil case. So how are you not looking for money when at the end of the day, that's all that can be done in a civil case is settle for a monetary gain, right? So it just doesn't make sense that she would say that she's not doing it for money when they're not going at Jay-Z criminally like Jay-Z dared Busby to do. Look, if I did these things, that's horrible. Come at me criminally. Lock me up. Why are you only coming at me for some money? Doesn't make sense. And Alex Shapiro is saying that none of this stuff even happened. So y'all get in the comment section. Y'all let me know what y'all think about this entire ordeal. Because Alex Shapiro, the attorney for Jay-Z, has put out a timeline of events, right? How this Jane Doe said they occurred. And he showed how it doesn't make sense. It doesn't line up, okay, with what Jay-Z and Diddy were doing that night. Diddy had to go to 2 different after parties with J-Lo. J-Lo switched clothes, right? 2 different wardrobes she had on, okay? Jay-Z went to a nightclub. He never went to a white residence at all. He went straight to a studio session after this nightclub that he attended, right? And he was at one of those parties with Puff, right? So how could all this take place if they were in 2 different places at one time, according to this Jane Doe, at a white residence? You know, with this alleged incident taking place while they were somewhere else partying. Just doesn't make sense. Okay? So, anyway, y'all let me know. And until the next time, this is OG Jucario TV with the latest in rap, hip-hop, celebrity, and urban news. You're watching the Rundown Podcast. I appreciate everybody for spending with me. I appreciate all my subscribers for sliding with your boy every time. And say, man, hey, man, keep hitting that like button, keep hitting that subscribe button, and look, turn on post notification so we can slide whenever I get the drop. You already know what it is, man. It's deeper than Buddha, her, you hear me? And guess what? I'm gone.